Oh my gosh, it is such an honor to be here with you all today. Have you had a great last couple of days? Yeah! Woo! Now everyone should have a copy of my book, I Love Me More, in front of them, courtesy of our friends at Global Payments. You know, I wrote this book during the pandemic, and it was a book I knew I had to write. And it's truly so surreal, and it almost brings me to tears to be here with you today and to get to be in this moment in my book journey with you right here, right now. But you might be wondering, I love me more. What does that mean? To answer that, I'm going to take you back to a moment in time when I met with my friend Emily for dinner shortly after breaking up with someone I was really in love with. I don't understand, she said. Why would you break up with someone you are still in love with? Without hesitation, I confidently said, because I love me more. Emily is looking at me flabbergasted. What do you mean, I love me more? She said. This answer came so naturally to me, it was almost hard for me to explain, but I tried my best. I am my highest priority, I said. If I'm not going to feel valued in a relationship, then I don't hesitate to choose myself and put my needs first. I'd rather break my own heart and suffer the temporary consequences of that than not value myself enough and stay. She's still looking at me confused. But you still love him, she said. I don't understand. Are you sure you've thought this through? Trust me, my point of view didn't come to me overnight, but over many experiences and many hard-fought internal battles spanning over my entire life. You see, as much as I loved him, I still put my needs and my happiness first in my life. I really did all I could do to communicate my relationship needs to him, but he still didn't treat me in a way that showed me that he valued having me in his life. I was pouring so much of my time and my energy into helping him with his life and into growing our relationship. If I'm not going to get what I need in return, I need to value myself and end the relationship. A few weeks later, Emily calls me to tell me she'd been given our last conversation a lot of thought. I have to be honest with you, she said. At first, I really couldn't understand where you were coming from. But I spent a lot of time thinking about what you said over dinner that evening, and it finally clicked. Suddenly, I Love Me More made so much sense to me, almost like in a third-party kind of way. Like, I am a separate person looking back at me in the mirror. I love me more. Once this concept clicked for Emily, it changed how she viewed her own situation. Now, she'd been dating this guy, James, and she realized that the way he treated her didn't make her feel valued by him. He would constantly send her these cryptic text messages that she had to try and read into. He didn't make her feel like a priority at all, and she found herself constantly agonizing over where their relationship stood. She realized she wasn't valuing herself by putting up with this kind of treatment. I Love Me More gave her the strength she needed to finally call the relationship off once and for all. And thank God she did that, because not even a year later, she met and fell in love with an absolutely amazing person who treats her with the same value she finally gave to herself. I Love Me More was an entirely new concept for my friend Emily. Perhaps it's a new concept for you too? Now you might be thinking, I'm not on Match.com or out there in the dating scene, Jenna, so this is all well and good, but this doesn't apply to me. Okay. Well, have you ever been at a job where you felt unvalued or unappreciated? Or how about a friendship? Or maybe some type of organization where all of a sudden you think, this is not what I signed up for. But you stay anyway because you say to yourself, I'm not a quitter. I don't want to make anyone feel bad. Or could be worse. I've known this person since high school. Family is forever. And so you stay anyway, even though you leave feeling diminished or perhaps completely drained afterward. I love me more doesn't just apply to romantic relationships. It applies to all areas of our lives. Just like my friend Emily connected with I and me as a separate person looking back at us in the mirror, we are each in a relationship with ourselves. And it's the most important relationship we've got. Yet most of us aren't even aware of this. We didn't learn this growing up. Nobody taught us this in school. But let's stop and think about this for a second. Haven't there been times when you've tried to tell yourself something to give yourself a pep talk? Maybe you tried to encourage yourself, said, just one more hour. You're almost at the finish line, Jenna. You got this. Or haven't you ever been hard on yourself for making a mistake? Perhaps said to yourself, God, I'm such an idiot. Whether we're nice or a bully to ourselves, our relationship with ourselves has the biggest impact out of any other relationship of our entire adult lives. Just like my friend Emily connected with I and me as a separate person looking back at us in the mirror, pardon me. We have to be consciously aware of this relationship, ensuring that we are treating ourselves with kindness and taking care of our needs. It's up to us to prioritize our well-being. Let's put it this way. If it's not your responsibility to put you first, whose responsibility is it? When you think about it, it makes so much sense, right? Then why do so many of us, women especially, have such a hard time when it comes to practicing self-love? Perhaps it's because society seems to teach women that putting ourselves first would be selfish. Bred to be the nurturing ones, we've learned to put everyone else first, abandoning ourselves and our needs along the way. I hear this all the time. Jenna, self-love sounds selfish to me. And there's a lot of research around this too. Psychologist and life coach Vanessa Scotto says, not knowing the difference between selfishness and self-love is a prime cause of exhaustion, anxiety, and unhappiness. So I want to set this record straight with you today and review with you the difference between selfishness and self-love, okay? Now, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the definition of selfish is to be concerned excessively or exclusively with oneself, seeking or concentrating on one's own advantage, pleasure or well-being, without regard for others. That's the key point. On the other hand, according to the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation, self-love is a state of appreciation that comes from actions that support our physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. Self-love means having a high regard for your happiness and well-being. Self-love means taking care of your needs and not sacrificing your well-being to please others. Self-love means not settling for less than you deserve. To practice self-love doesn't mean that all of a sudden you lose all concern for others, or that all you now care about are your immediate needs. That would indeed be selfish. Self-love is about valuing yourself and having a high regard for your happiness and well-being. The funny thing is, the better we take care of ourselves, the less resentment we have toward others for not giving us what we give to them, and the more we have to give to our jobs, our families, our communities, and the world. If anything, self-love is the opposite of being selfish. It's like when you're on an airplane and they tell you to be sure to put your own oxygen mask before helping others. They're reminding us we can't be much good to everyone else if we're not getting enough oxygen ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves first. It's what sustains us. It's our energy. So you might be wondering, Jenna, how did you get to this place where you could confidently choose to put you first? Were you always this way? You might be surprised to learn I didn't grow up this way, and I didn't go to some sort of elite college, nor did I have a bra-burning feminist as a mother. I definitely wasn't raised to love myself. If anything, it was quite the opposite. Whew, it's a terrible picture. I was raised in a very strict religious home as the oldest of 5 kids. I was taught that self-sacrifice is a virtue. There's no such thing as personal boundaries. I learned it was most important to always be seen as a good girl, to always be seen as nice to everyone else, even if it meant abandoning myself and my needs along the way. I definitely had no sense of self-value or self-worth. Do you know that verse in the Bible that goes something like, spare the rod, spoil the child? In our home, it was taken quite literally. And there was no such thing as being allowed to just be yourself, or even be a regular kid for that matter. If it didn't adhere to the strict teachings in the Bible, or my parents' very strict other set of rules, it simply wasn't allowed, or else. We were harshly punished for doing things that most kids got to do, like watching Scooby-Doo cartoons because of the supposed demonic ghosts in it. Or for eating candy because candy wasn't allowed. Or for fighting with my brother. All the normal stuff most kids do. I decided I could no longer tolerate the relentless abuse, and I left home at the age of 14. I ended up dropping out of high school and got my GED at 17. Pregnant and married at 19. Divorced, single mom by 22. Yet, I went on to establish a mid-6-figure career in corporate leadership roles in my 20s. Founded a successful startup in my 30s that I later sold for $500,000. And bought and sold investment properties for multiple 6-figure profits. I have been able to pursue all of my dreams and goals, travel all over the world, and truly live a life full of genuine happiness, where I can stand before you today and say, I could not be more fulfilled than I am today, right here, right now. You see, I Love Me More was a choice that I started making very early in my life. I love me more than to allow my spirit to be broken and my body to be harmed by my parents. I love me more than to stay in a marriage where I am deeply unhappy and have to deal with constant put-downs. I love me more than to stay at any job where I don't feel valued or appreciated and where I'm not getting paid what I know I'm worth. Each time I chose to love me more, I leveled up my life and success, increased my level of happiness, and eliminated toxic relationships that only served to bring me down. But here's the deal. It's definitely not easy for most of us to get to a place where we can choose to put ourselves first. Why? Because there are so many pitfalls and saboteurs of self-love. I cover many of them in my book, which you all have, but today I want to talk with you about 3 of the most pervasive. Saboteur number 1. letting unconscious, outdated social conditioning guide our behavior. Did you know that most psychologists believe or agree that we form around 95% of our beliefs and behaviors by the age of 7? And where do we learn these beliefs and behaviors? Mostly from our parents, but also from our teachers, our cultures, our religions, and peers. We learn beliefs like, if you do this, you're good. But if you do that, you're bad, or perhaps even evil, depending on how you were raised. That if you do this, this is right, and then doing that is wrong. We learn that girls should behave one way, and boys should behave a different way. For example, most fathers feel like it's their duty to teach their sons how to be a man. They're taught to be confident, be ambitious, compete to get ahead, dominate, be a provider, take up space, and proudly share their accomplishments. They shouldn't cry or show their feelings too much, or they'll be accused of acting like a girl. And if they don't learn this from their fathers, they'll probably be bullied by their peers at school until they learn to comply with this be a man social conditioning. Young girls are also encouraged to be smart, confident, successful, but also to be sure that we stay in touch with our emotions and that we look out for the needs and feelings of others first, ahead of our own. We're taught to be confident, but never brag. Be assertive, but only if it doesn't upset anybody. Be smart, but no one likes a know-it-all. And be sure that everyone else likes you, but don't like yourself too much, and certainly don't love yourself, because that would be selfish. And so the social norm of nice girl training teaches us to abandon ourselves. These beliefs and behaviors that were passed down to us and modeled to us by our mothers and grandmothers before them and so on, then became subconscious programs that just sit in the background, in our subconscious, running our entire lives. And most of us never examine them, much less question them. It's just the way things are, right? Now, the positive effects for society is that women tend to be more nurturing and empathetic. This gives us the ability to understand the needs of others. And that is a trait that makes us great leaders, among other things. In fact, researchers say empathy is one of the most important leadership traits a person can have. But the problem for us arises when we don't prioritize our own needs and give ourselves the same empathy, the same honor, the same compassion, kindness, respect, and love that we give to everyone else. I remember this situation that happened many years ago, back when I was working at a new job in Silicon Valley. We're just about to start. Oh, by the way, I was a business development manager, and we're just about to start a company-wide meeting, and I'm chatting with our president for the very first time. Then he says, "It would be nice to have some coffee, Jenna. Wouldn't you like some coffee?" Actually didn't want any coffee, so I responded, "No thanks, I'm good. I don't drink coffee this late in the day." My boss is sitting right across from me, his mouth wide open. I swore I saw a fly go in and out. It's awkwardly silent, and I am feeling out of the loop as to what's going on. Then my colleague Mike does his best to break the uncomfortable silence, and he says, "Hey, Jenna, I know you like a good Starbucks latte. Wouldn't you like one right now? No, Mike, seriously, if I have coffee this late in the day, I'll be awake all night long. The meeting went on. Everyone survived without coffee. At the end of the day, I'm standing in the doorway of my boss's office. The president is also there. He's sitting right across from my boss's desk. And he turns to me and he says, "You know, Jenna, I really look up to you." I am clueless as to where this compliment was coming from, but said, "Thanks, probably because I'm wearing heels." We all chuckled, and then I headed home. Now, on my drive home, up windy Highway 17, I'm reflecting on the day, the coffee situation, the "I look up to you" compliment. Then it hits me. Oh my God, those guys wanted me to get them coffee. And were shocked when I didn't. But it didn't even occur to me to get them coffee because I didn't want any. My needs were my highest priority, not theirs, which is not how most women have been conditioned to behave. They were so used to having their needs met by the women in their lives that they didn't know how to react when their needs didn't trump my own. And it gained me their respect. Why? Because my actions showed the company president that I regarded myself higher than him. Not in a dog-eat-dog kind of way, and not in a rude, narcissistic, conceited kind of way, but in a way that reminded him that we are all responsible for ourselves, and it's our own duty to fulfill our own needs. Now, it would have been different if I had a craving for coffee and announced to the group, "Hey, I'm making a Starbucks run. Does anyone want anything?" That's just being polite. But last time I checked, errand girl was not part of my job description. And hey, while we're at it, why didn't anyone ask Mike to get the coffee? Women are more likely to take care of the needs of others ahead of their own. And there's a lot of men and women who are accustomed to that and thus expect it. It's one of those social norms. And that transfers right on over to the workplace as well. But just because it's the way things have been doesn't mean it has to continue to be that way. Beliefs are not facts. We can change our beliefs and our behaviors anytime we want to. Okay, so we have now covered the first saboteur of self-love. Before we get into the second one, I would like us to take a minute to do a quick self-care exercise, okay? All right, so, I keep forgetting my little pointer here. Now, it's so easy for us to get caught up in the day-to-day duties and activities that come with being a business leader, a caregiver, a partner, or a friend, that far too often we neglect to fill up our own cups, or like I like to say, charge up our power containers. Now, imagine with me for a minute, you have your own internal power container, and you're either operating on power full or powerless. In order to sustain all of our output, we have to be sure that we're charging up our power containers on a regular basis, just like you plug in your cell phone every day, right? So how do we do that? Well, we could go on a vacation to Costa Rica, or take a spa day with some friends. That'd be nice, right? But the truth is, these can be time-consuming, costly luxuries. And let's be honest, they don't tend to happen very often. So how can we charge up on a more regular basis? I have something I like to call my joy list. It's just a small list of simple, easy things that quickly get me into my happy place. Now, my list includes listening to music while I'm working, stepping away from my computer and going for a walk when it's a nice day outside. I'll actually phone up a friend instead of texting and have a real conversation with someone. That always gets me going. And if I'm in a real time crunch, I'll be honest, I will scroll through some funny animal videos on Instagram because that always gets me going. And they have my algorithm down. But I try to do at least one thing for my list each and every day to stay charged up. So what I'd like you to do now is to think, what would you put on your own joy list? Now, to make it easy, I have added some ideas, very few ideas to the screen here, but just think of what is simple and easy and quick that you can do that gets you in your happy place. There are bookmarks on your table, and hopefully some pens as well, where you can jot down a few of your own joy list items. I'm going to give you about a minute to do this, and if you have extra time, please feel free to fill out as much as you can on that feedback request form, because that would be absolutely appreciated. And if you can only come up with 1 or 2 items, don't worry about it. You can always do this later at home. So I'll give you a minute. Okay, we'll go ahead and stop there. I'm down in front of the stage now because I would love to know, would anyone love to volunteer to give me one item from their joy list to share with us? Raise your hand. Yeah, okay. Perfect. Would you mind standing and tell us your name and company name, please? Yes, you're on the spot now.
My name is Conchetta. I'm from FIS, and my one thing would be do nothing.
Oh, yes. I love it. Thank you. That's a good one, yes. Anybody else? Okay, yes. Would you mind standing and tell us your name and company name, please?
My name is Stephanie. I'm with FIS, and my thing is to travel to the all-exclusive resorts.
Oh, you can take me with you. Thank you, thank you. All right, we have time for one more person. Oh, yes. Tell us your name and company name.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm with NCR, and I said something that brings me joy is dancing.
Thank you so much. All right, now, of course, I don't have my clicker with me, but I like to, I keep my list right next to my computer where I can see it each and every day to remind me to try to do at least one thing for my list each and every day to stay charged up. It is so important that we charge ourselves up on a regular basis, just like you plug in your cell phone, right? Now, I believe your love, oh, you know what, I'm going to turn this off. I believe your love is your power. In fact, I have an entire talk on this because I think it's that important. Remember, the better we take care of ourselves, the more we have to give to everyone else. Okay, so we have now covered the first saboteur, and that which is letting unconscious social conditioning guide our behavior. The second one that I wanted to cover with you today is guilt and shame. Now, the reason why I wanted to cover guilt and shame today is some of you might leave here today and be like, great, I'm going to do what Jenna said and start prioritizing my needs. And you take that first step, and then bam, guilt kicks in. And then, oh boy, are you really in for it. Start thinking to yourself, oh, I must have done something bad because I feel guilty. And then that guilt turns into self-judgment. Well, then I must be bad because I've done this bad thing. And that sends us into a full-on shame spiral. And that shame sends us right back into our comfort zone of self-sacrifice and self-abandonment. Self-sacrifice and self-abandonment. Right back into our comfort zone. We've learned to let our guilt and shame mechanisms override the need to care for ourselves first and foremost. And this can be a major saboteur of self-love. I mentioned earlier that I'm a mom. Any other moms here today? Being a mom who's also career-oriented can bring up all sorts of guilt, feelings of guilt, right? Guilt for not being a stay-at-home mom. Guilt for having to work late. Guilt for not being able to make every soccer game. There is no lack of mom guilt. Now, my adult son and I, pictured here, are in a really great place today. But let me tell you, there was a time when the devastating and destructive power of guilt and shame were not only sabotaging my self-love, but my relationship with my son as well. For a long time, I tried to mold him into the person I wanted him to be. I used various methods: threats, money, tough love. I was so consumed with how he was turning out and how that reflected on me as a mother that I nearly lost myself and my sanity. And ironically, the more I imposed my vision of his life on him, the more our relationship suffered. So Vincent was studying film at California State University. He had a great job, was making great money. His future was well set, and I was quite the proud mom. But then one day, both of our worlds were turned completely upside down when he attended a music festival and experimented with a cocktail of hallucinogenic drugs. This led to a downward spiral of chaos and instability that no one could ever be prepared for. When I rushed to his side and I looked in his eyes, all the light was gone. He dropped out of college, lost his job, stopped caring about his appearance and hygiene. He ended up being diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome with psychosis. And the doctors were able to eventually stabilize him with medications, but nothing was ever able to get him back to the life he had before. I was devastated, distraught for many months. I have overwhelming feelings of guilt, like I should be doing more and sacrificing more. And then there was the shame of it all, as if somehow his life was a reflection of my life. Over the next couple of years, the journey with my son was challenging, to say the least. And he kept making some pretty poor life choices. And I kept trying to fix him, pushing him to try harder, telling him how he should be living his life, all in an effort to try and get him back as close as possible to the life that I wanted him to have. But I kept losing that battle and pushing my son away in the process, which just further fed into my feelings of helplessness. Then one day, after spending hours feeling sorry for myself, I have an epiphany. I realize I have wrapped so much of my own self-worth in my son's life and how he was turning out. It's like what was happening to him was happening to me. Not only was his situation taking one person down, it was taking us both down. And no one was benefiting by me going down with him. So I decide it's time to take a different approach. I needed to get back to self-love and let go of the guilt and shame that had been weighing me down, and get back to focusing on my life's purpose. Vincent eventually stabilized. He got on disability, gets free health care from the state of California, lives by the beach, works part-time at a Lululemon store, and has everything he needs. He's content in his low-key lifestyle, and he even enrolled in a local community college. And our relationship was able to find much better footing as I learned to provide a better type of love, without judgment and without needing to force my vision of his life on him. and to only offer advice when he asks for it. This feels like a much better way of loving my son, one that gives him his own agency without having to deal with a guilt-ridden mother who's also battling with shame. This journey with my son showed me that my son is not a reflection of me, and that I needed to accept his own individual life path. My son and I are on very different life paths, and that's okay. Looking back, I am so grateful that I made that switch. Remember, self-love is having a high regard for your happiness and well-being, and that was a place that I needed to get back to. You see, instead, what could have happened is I could have fallen into the trap that I see so many women fall into. Researchers say that women tend to turn our guilt and shame into anger at ourselves. And this can become what the experts refer to as anxious aggressive guilt. We are conditioned to care for others in a way that sacrifices our well-being. I'd like to invite you to close your eyes for a minute and think back to a difficult story from your own past or maybe something current where you'd like to be relieved from the burden of guilt. When you think about it, is this guilt helping you or anyone else in any way? How could life be different if you were to allow yourself to be released from the guilt? Are you open to the possibility of ushering in kindness, compassion, and forgiveness toward yourself instead? You can open your eyes now. Do you feel a little lighter? Guilt and shame can both be major saboteurs of self-love. We have to be very careful not to let either stop us from prioritizing our well-being. Remember, when we love ourselves more, we have more to give to everyone else. Okay, so we've covered the first two saboteurs of self-love that I wanted to cover today, letting unconscious social conditioning guide our behavior, and letting guilt and shame override us. The third and final saboteur I wanted to cover with you today is never saying no when that's what you really feel like saying. Why is it that so many of us have such a hard time when it comes to saying no and setting boundaries? The reasons we give seem nice enough. We want to be there for others, right? We want to be helpful, reliable, easy to work with. But where's the limit? What happens when we don't say no when that's what we really feel like saying? We end up sabotaging our relationship with ourselves. We sabotage self-love, and we set ourselves up to be treated like a doormat. Last year, this guy, Jim, hired me to be the MC and to give an inspirational talk for a full-day event for their company. He said if the event went well, they'd like to hire me for more events in the near future. I'm thinking, awesome, I love doing this kind of work. Okay, so now it's the night before the event. And Jim sends me a message asking me to change my talk. Oh, and he asked me to record a promotional video for them so they could post it on social media in the morning before the event starts. I'm sure you can imagine what I felt like saying. And it wasn't yes. So I write back, no, Jim, I cannot change my talk the night before an event. It takes many hours to prepare a talk like this. And no, I cannot record this video for you tonight. My main concern now is doing the job you hired me to do. I need to be asleep early so I can be at my best tomorrow. No response. Now, the event itself went great. The following day, Jim and I had a follow-up call scheduled. He asked me how I felt about the event. So I asked him, can I be completely honest with you? He's like, yeah, sure. So I say, the event itself was great. I'd love to do more of these. But I am not able to work last minute as this does not allow me to be at my best. I need at least 48 hours notice of any video recording requests on my schedule, and I need to be completely off my computer the evening before the event so I can be well rested. Jim readily agreed, was super respectful, and appreciated my direct communication. And Jim and I went on to have a great working relationship. What I found is that 95% of the time, boundaries strengthen relationships. When we communicate a boundary, we're basically giving someone a roadmap for how to create a healthy relationship with us. Had I not said no, when that's what I really felt like saying, I would have basically told myself that my needs don't matter to me, that his needs come before my own. And I would have set myself up to be treated like a doormat. And undoubtedly, he would have. In order to say yes to self-love, sometimes we have to say no to others. And sometimes we have to say no to ourselves, too. Far too often, we can be our own worst bosses, driving ourselves to work more hours than we should, not unplugging during lunch, foregoing self-care due to unrelenting deadlines, not putting our foot down and prioritizing our well-being. Who here is guilty of that? Leaders who do a better job with self-love make better leaders. Remember, we have to be putting our own oxygen mask before helping others. Sometimes when we're in stressful situations, we can forget to put the oxygen mask on. Self-love helps prevent stress and burnout. Recently, I was at a party and I met a woman who had previously been an executive at a software development company. She was telling me that after having gone as high in leadership as she could at her organization, she quit her job due to burnout. As she ended up starting her own consultancy business rather than making a lateral move to another company where she said she'd have to deal with the same thing all over again. So, being the naturally curious person that I am, I asked her, were you by chance one of the only women on your leadership team? Yeah, she said, yeah. Many times she was the only woman in the room. So then I asked her if she felt she worked harder and more hours than her male counterparts. Oh yeah, and again, she said yes. So finally I asked her if all that extra hard work and all those extra long hours were self-imposed. She thought about it for a minute, and then she said, yeah. Yeah, no one told her she had to do those things, but somehow she felt she had to. And after getting to the point where she was completely burnt out, she figured the only way to deal with it was to quit her job and rethink her entire career path. But I have to wonder, was quitting really the only way she could have dealt with it? Could better boundaries have turned this around for her? Now, as an entrepreneur myself, I'm always supportive when others start their own businesses. But I also know that we as a society not only need women to rise into leadership roles, but to stay there. Unfortunately, though, the statistics are that more than 10% of women leaders, from senior managers all the way up to the C-suite, quit their jobs in the past year. Currently, for every one woman director who gets promoted, 2 are choosing to leave their companies. Burnout is a real problem for us women, especially as we rise through the leadership ranks. I have an entire talk on this because I strongly believe that self-love can help prevent burnout. So from here on out, can we please say no when that's what we really feel like saying? So we can say yes to self-love? All right, so we covered these 3 saboteurs and the 3 things you can do about it. Number 1 was letting unconscious social conditioning guide our behavior. We could stop the sabotage by prioritizing our needs. Second thing we covered was letting guilt and shame override us. We could stop the sabotage by not letting either stop us from taking care of our well-being. And finally, we talked about never saying no when that's what you really feel like saying. And we can answer that by knowing that boundaries are healthy and can strengthen relationships. But if you forget everything I said today, I hope you're going to remember this one thing. We are each in a relationship with ourselves. And it's the most important relationship we will ever have. It's your responsibility to prioritize your well-being. Now, before I leave you today, I just want to let you know there's a lot more where that came from. You've got my book. I cover a lot more saboteurs and all that kind of good stuff. But also, I have a free weekly email series called Love Notes to Myself. I cover stuff, self-love tips and reminders like I talked about today, and a whole lot more where that came from. So feel free to sign up for that if you like by scanning the QR code, or you can type in ilovemenotes.com into your browser. But I just have one final question for you today. Are you ready to love yourself more? All right, I love affirmations. So can we affirm all together today, I love me more, all together on the count of 3? Yeah? Are you ready? All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. I love me more. That was awesome, but I think we can do better. Can we do it one more time, louder? Okay, count of 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. I love me more. Awesome! You ladies are the best. Thank you. Thank you.